St. Louis Rams receiver Stedman Bailey was shot twice Tuesday night while sitting in a car in Miami.
Was involved in a shooting incident.
Was shot in the head.
Being shot in the head.
Stedman Bailey may not be an NFL player that you remember, but I certainly do. He was a wide receiver for the St. Louis and LA Rams. He was looking like a promising young player for the team. But in November 2015, something horrific happened. His story starts much before that event though. And before I get into this video, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. All support is very much appreciated, helps me out more than you can see. Now, let's get right into the Stedman Bailey story. Stedman Bailey was born in Miramar, Florida, about 30 minutes northwest of Miami. He grew up in a single-parent household as the youngest of 5 siblings. His mom had to sacrifice a lot for Stedman and his siblings, so he wanted to use sports as a way to try to help her out in the future. His mom signed him up for football when he was 9 years old to keep him out of trouble and would quickly show out in his years before high school. He would play high school football at Miramar High School with now Pro Bowl quarterback Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks. The two would excel at the school, and they were considered a collegiate package deal. Wherever one went, the other would go there too. For the class of 2009, Bailey was a 3-star recruit and the 48th ranked wide receiver, and Geno was a 4-star recruit and the 3rd ranked dual threat quarterback. Smith would commit first to West Virginia University on November 10, 2008, and just 24 hours later, Stedman committed to WVU as well. After finishing his high school career and attending West Virginia, Bailey would redshirt his freshman year, and only play a small role in his redshirt sophomore season, catching just 24 balls for 317 yards and 4 touchdowns. However, in his 2011 junior year, he would take off. Bailey had 72 catches for 1,279 yards and 12 touchdowns. That 1,279 yards was the school record for a single season at the time. Bailey wasn't the only offensive star on this Mountaineers team. Geno Smith threw for 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. There was also wide receiver / gadget player Tavon Austin, who had 101 catches for 1,186 yards and 8 touchdowns. West Virginia would go 10-3 and crush Clemson in the Orange Bowl 70-33, where Geno threw 6 touchdowns, 4 to Tavon, 1 to Stedman, and 1 to Willie Millhouse. Although his junior year was great, his senior season was yet to come. In 2012, Bailey was just ridiculous, catching 114 balls for 1,622 yards, and get this, 25 touchdowns. Yeah. He ranked 3rd in the country in yards, 2nd in receptions, and obviously 1st in touchdowns, where he had the lead by 7 scores. After a disappointing season, Bailey and West Virginia would lose Syracuse in the Pinstripe Bowl, but the individual success he had would skyrocket his potential as a draft prospect. He would finish as a finalist for the Fred Biletnikoff Award, losing to USC wide receiver Marquise Lee. Bailey still leads WVU in receiving touchdowns in their history, 2nd in receiving yards. The 2012 season for Bailey contains every single season receiving record for West Virginia. After his senior year, he would declare for the 2013 NFL Draft. Scouts saw Stedman as a guy who was obviously very productive in college, physical receiver in both his routes and at the catch point, had amazing body control, and a very smart receiver who can find holes in the zone to pick up first downs. But like every prospect, there were some downsides. He wasn't an explosive athlete. He was a small guy at 5'10 and like 190, 195 pounds. Not the best change in direction. It was feared that because opponents put more attention on Tavon Austin, his numbers in college might have been inflated. Despite all this, Stedman Bailey was invited to the 2013 NFL Combine, where he posted decent numbers and impressed scouts despite some things they were saying prior to the Combine. He ran a 4.52 40-yard dash, 34.5-inch vertical jump, did a great job in the field drills, running fluidly downfield and catching basically every ball. This locked him into being drafted in about the first 3 rounds. After a great collegiate career and a solid combine, Stedman Bailey will be drafted by the St. Louis Rams with the 92nd overall pick in the 3rd round, joining college teammate Tavon Austin, who was drafted by the Rams 8th overall. He came out as a rookie and played decent in just 19% of offensive snaps. He did play a lot on special teams and even forced a fumble. He finished the year with 19 total touches for 259 scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown. In training camp and preseason of his second year, Bailey looked great, making amazing plays in camp and catching a touchdown in the preseason. Things were looking pretty good for him. However, we knew he was going to be suspended for the first 2 games for PED use, as it was announced in May of that year, but he came back and threw together a few solid games throughout the year. In week 11, he caught 7 of 9 targets for 89 yards and a touchdown. The next week, 5 of 6 for 100 yards, and then caught 5 of 8 targets for 74 yards a few weeks later. He's still kinda disappointed, given some preseason expectations due to the plays he had made in the offseason, only garnering 435 yards and a touchdown on 30 catches. But he did make one great play, and I think we all know it. Roll the clip.
Ryan punting it away. Austin back deep. And the punt taken on the far side by Stedman Bailey. Bailey down the sideline, and he will take it all the way. The Seahawks were faked out by Austin. He set up for the return on the left side.
Yeah, I hope most of us remember this. It was amazing, given that nobody had really tricked the whole special teams unit like this, or at least that I recall. Going into next year, Bailey was in the same spot. He was just about the 3rd, 4th receiver on the depth chart, getting a decent amount of snaps throughout the year. His season would come to a temporary pause when he was given a suspension of 4 games for a substance abuse violation on November 9th. He was eligible to come back in Week 14 against Tampa. This was a minor setback that he could come back from, but then the worst thing that could happen happened to Stedman. On November 24th, 2015, Bailey was shot twice in the head while in the car with some family members. He was in critical but stable condition with non-life-threatening injuries when he was rushed to the hospital. He had a 6-hour surgery done to his shattered skull and survived the shooting. His cousin was also shot 11 times trying to defend his kids and miraculously survived his injuries as well. Stedman Bailey's NFL career may have been put on hold, but he stayed with the Rams for a little bit, kind of helping out in OTAs for like a morale standpoint. And just 5 months after the incident, he was still seen running routes, although he was not medically cleared. But LA waived Stedman in June of 2016, 7 months after the shooting. And just a month later, he was brought on as a student assistant coach back at his alma mater of West Virginia. He still wanted to play in the NFL. A year after the injury, he was not satisfied with the results of his surgery, so he opted for another procedure to get a titanium plate over the damaged part of his skull, and this fixed any physical issues he had, according to Bailey himself. Even after all this, he still suffered with PTSD, depression, and occasionally had seizures. Somehow, after everything that happened to him, doctors cleared him to play in 2017. He would attempt a comeback, working out for some teams, working out with Tavon Austin and Antonio Brown in the offseason. The comeback would fail, as no team wanted to sign him, and even though he failed, Stedman Bailey is the definition of a walking miracle. The NFL is a dream for millions, and only a small percentage of those millions get to live out their dreams. The average career length is about 3 seasons. It's a physical game with lots of injuries, on and off the field, and some career-ending like we see here. While Stedman's career only lasted just about the average length, today he is fulfilling bigger dreams of his. Nowadays, he is a father of 2, a husband, an entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. He created a brand, Positive Energy, which is used to try to promote very important topics like gun violence and motivate people to keep going through all the bad things in life. He's quoted saying the brand is a global brand that represents having a healthy relationship with yourself, celebrating your style, and successes while encouraging those around you. When you focus on the positive things, life is golden. And the link for this website will be in the description. Bailey's advocating for people to keep a positive mindset through tough times, just like he did while recovering from the shooting. He's spoken on gun violence panels with other athletes affected by gun violence, an event sponsored by People and Every Town for Gun Safety, a nonprofit organization. He's also spoken at other panels, and you should try and look him up on YouTube or try and find an article about them because his message is just beautiful after everything he's been through. And he took this horrifying experience, turned it into a new way to embrace everything he is grateful for, like his family and like living out his dreams. I hope everyone can read this image I put up on the screen and run with the message it is sending to us all. Thank you, Stedman, for being the great man that you are now after everything that you have been through. And with all that being said, that is it for me, guys. Thank you for tuning into Fanatic Sports. I hope you enjoyed this video because the Stedman Bailey message and journey is really something that shows that we shouldn't take anything for granted in life. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure you follow me on Instagram at FanaticSports25 and on Twitter and TikTok at Fanatic Sports. This is Joe of Fanatic Sports, signing off.